used to fight with my wife like I was trying to negotiate a real estate contract. There was constant logic and facts. I was defending my position. And I thought to myself, if I could just explain myself more clearly, that she would understand. And I was wrong, right? Like somehow every argument ended with her shutting down and me feeling frustrated. Yeah, I was getting my point across. And sure, you might call the fact that I was winning the fight, but in the end, I was actually losing my wife. You see, the way that you fight with your wife is either going to build the marriage or it's going to burn it down. And unfortunately, most men, like myself, we're hard-headed. We're burning it down without even realizing it. And so today, I'm going to show you how I fight with my wife and the 4 steps that you need to take to make sure that you're fighting fair, but you're also fighting together. Right? This is the same process that I used to save my marriage. If you're new here, I'm Sergio Nazzaro. I help lead men who are businessmen, entrepreneurs, fathers, and husbands become better men at home so that they can make more money and have the marriage and the life that they've always wanted. So let's get after it. Fighting, hard conversations with your wife, the constant conflict, like these things are gonna happen. Especially if you're running your own business and your wife's trying to take care of toddlers and things are going on at home, like there's gonna be this nonstop just pressure that's building. And if you're not aware of it, right? When you get into these fights, you're gonna approach it with logic to her feelings. You see, I used to think that when my wife got into a fight that we had to come to a resolution, which means she had to agree with my stance. But that was so short-sighted of me because I never took into account how she was feeling and what she was needed. And not that I was intentionally neglecting it. I was just so stupid I wasn't even paying attention to what was going on. And so the one thing I want you to consider is that if you're constantly having the same fights with your wife and you keep just hitting your head against the wall, wondering why we can't get past this point, you gotta start to look at how you're showing up in the fight. You see, one of the worst fights my wife and I ever had came on the back end of just all of the pressure that we were feeling. One of the worst fights that me and my wife had was about 6 months after my first son was born. We decided that she was gonna become a stay-at-home mom, which meant that her $140,000 that she made in her salary was gonna be gone. That started to create pressure for both of us. You see, as a man, when you become the sole provider in your home, the pressure that you're gonna start to feel isn't just gonna be monetary. Yes, you're gonna feel the monetary pressure that's gonna be constantly pressing up against you, but that's not it. There's also gonna be this pressure to be a great dad and the pressure to be a great husband. Those 3 pressures alone can break many men because they're constant, they're consistent. Your business is gonna want so much of you. You gotta make money to provide for your family and now your child. My wife left her corporate job and we had to cover that $140,000 in income. That pressure almost became insurmountable. At the same time, I was trying to manage my friendships and my relationships. And one of the big things that's been very important to me and a thing that a lot of men let go of is their own health. Not to mention the thing that makes you, your hobbies. When you have all of these coming together, there is this pressure that you're gonna be feeling. And when you're feeling that pressure, too often you don't feel the pressure that's coming from the other side. You don't even recognize it. You see, I didn't even realize that my wife was feeling an immense amount of pressure too. And I know that sounds short-sighted, but I didn't fully understand it. I had empathy for it, but I wasn't in her shoes. Not only was she a mom, but she was also taking care of the house. She was trying to take care of her health. She was also trying to maintain and start to create this new identity. There was constant pressure for both of us. When 2 people are stepping into a new role and that pressure is just going through the roof, and it doesn't have to be just if you have new kids. It could be a new business, it could be a new home, it could be a new city, and that pressure starts to increase. And as that pressure starts to build, that's the moment my wife and I had this issue. You see, one day, my wife called me on my phone and I was at work and I ignored it. Then she tried calling me again and I ignored it because I was trying to write this contract and get this deal under contract. She called me again. I realized I should probably pick up. When I picked up, she was hysterical. She was crying. I couldn't understand what she was saying, but I just knew I had to go home. So I packed up my bag. I put everything away. I drove home. And as I walked through the back door, I could see her legs dangling on the floor. And there was a baby crying and she was sobbing and she was just sitting there with our son. See, I'd gone back to work and I left my wife by herself with our son. I was trying to do my best. I didn't know any better, but this became one of the biggest fights in our life. A couple days later, my wife, in this big moment of blowing up because the pressure had built from what I was dealing with and what she was dealing with, we got into this biggest fight and she ripped off her rings and she slammed them on the table and she looked at me and she said, "I fucking hate you and I hate this relationship." And that was the moment in my life where I knew that the fights that we were having, she didn't feel seen, safe, and secure. I didn't feel like I was heard. She didn't understand my pressure that I was going through. I didn't understand hers. So inevitably, we just got to this spot where the same fights would happen over and over and over again. and the weight would compound and compound and compound. And it was because of the way that we were fighting that prevented us from actually moving to where we needed to go. That's how we got here. I had to make some changes in my life, and the reality is there's two different ways to fight. Fights are inevitable, but you get to choose how you show up. For the longest time, when I would show up in my fights, I would show up as a person who was looking to win. And I didn't even realize that. But there's things that you can do that if you're fighting with your wife is going to lead you into a place of complete disconnection. These are the things that you need to avoid. These are the things that are not going to build the relationship, but in fact, you're going to burn them down. Number one is raising your voice. You see, it's really easy to allow yourself to start to raise your voice when you're getting frustrated. Inevitably, that's just going to lead to two people talking and nobody listening. Raised voices don't create clarity. The second one is trying to defend yourself. When you go on the defensive, your wife's going to go on the defensive. When you try to justify your actions, all your wife can hear is that you are trying to get out of whatever it was. And I'm not even saying that what you did was wrong, but if you're going into this to try to disconnect, then defend yourself. The third one is don't bring up the past. You see, it's really easy in the heat of the moment when things are just going completely shit sideways to bring up things from the past that maybe you haven't fully forgiven. But when you do, you're no longer focused on the fight in front of you because you start to interject things from the past, and now there's no focus on the fight. Now you've really had your wife put up her guard because you've brought in things from the past and you're no longer focused on what's in front of you. And the fourth one, dude, don't try to win. You're not here to win, because if you win, I'm going to tell you, man, you're going to actually lose. It doesn't matter if she agrees with you. It doesn't matter if you have the resolution, like you want her to follow your way. Like, that's not what we're here for. That's just going to lead to more disconnection and another fight. The reality is fighting isn't bad, right? It's how we fight that matters, because fighting can also lead to a point where you get to grow and expand as a couple. There's 4 things that I want you to keep in the back of your mind. It's almost like a playbook on how you're going to show up in this fight. I want you to write these down. I want you to make notes, because these are going to be the things that you're going to live by. You're not going to operate outside of this playbook. You're going to follow this playbook. And if you do, you will find that the fights actually become productive. And if you do, you will find that these fights can actually bring you together and be productive. The first one, dude, is you have to get control of yourself. If you find yourself in the middle of the fight and you're getting heated and you're getting frustrated, and it's almost that feeling in your chest, I get that, or maybe it's a feeling in your head and you can feel your voice start to raise, you have to take a moment. One of the greatest skills and tools that my wife and I use is calling a timeout. If I can feel myself getting aggravated, I'll look at her and be like, hey, I need a timeout. And when you call a timeout, it's a minimum of 30 minutes. You're not allowed to continue to have the conversation. She has to stop in that moment, and you're going to go off and you're going to actually start to slow down and just allow your nervous system to slow down so that you can get back control of yourself. But if you're the one to call the timeout, then you're also going to be the one to re-engage. And that's really important, because if you call a timeout in the middle of the fight and you don't say that, hey, I will come back when I'm ready to speak, the loop is open and you're just going to end up in this fight continuously. And she'll try to chirp at you and then you'll fight back. And before you know it, you're raising voices and you're doing the exact thing I told you not to do. So in that timeout, go and take 30 minutes minimum. If you need 60, take 60. If you need 90, take 90. It really doesn't matter. The fact is, you have to get to this place where you can control yourself, bring your energy back down. Because in a place of composure, in a place of you being calm, you can actually have a conversation. The second thing is you're going to take ownership. Now, before you get all pissed off and you're like, but I want my wife to take accountability too, I'm not gonna let her off the hook. I'm not saying that. But you're not in this fight because you were perfect. Something happened. And the reality is, most men see taking ownership as like removing accountability from their wife, but that's not the case. The moment you take ownership of what you've done and where you're at is the moment you get all your power back. Right? So in that fight that I had with my wife, where she felt like I had abandoned her, I took ownership. You're right. I was like, yeah, you're right. I did. I thought I was doing the best with what I could to make up the money that we were missing out on and the benefits we were missing out on, but I didn't do it correctly. You're right. You're 100% right. And I had to take ownership of that. Because the moment you take ownership, it completely lowers her guard. And she's like, okay, cool. He is taking ownership of this. And you're not doing it to try to get something. You're doing it because you realize that you have to be the leader to understand that sometimes you are at fault. And the reality is, a man who can't take responsibility is a man who's not ready to be heard. Number 3, shut up and listen. From a guy who likes to talk a lot, this is one of the hardest ones. You have to give your wife a place to just be able to express herself. This is not your chance to respond or defend yourself. This simply is you just listening. You giving her the ability to feel heard it's actually going to disengage a lot of the hard parts of the conversation. She just wants to know that you're listening to what she has to say. And when you're listening to her, you're not listening to respond. You're actively listening to what she experienced, what she's going through. And then when she's done, you repeat it back to her. Hey babe, I just want to make sure that I understand that what you said. That when I was working nonstop, you felt like my clients were more important than you. When I was constantly on my phone, you felt like, I cared more about my business than I did about the relationship. And you don't repeat it back in the sense of trying to defend yourself. You just repeat back what you heard her say. Because when you listen to be curious and you listen to understand, you allow her to feel seen. And when she feels seen, we can finally get to the last step. Because when you're calm and she feels heard and she's calm, the next piece of this whole thing is the ability for you to reconnect and take action. You see, at the end of the day, you both want the same thing. You both want a healthy relationship. You both want to feel loved. You both want to love one another. And when you can come to just an understanding of what you did wrong, what she did wrong, how she felt and how you felt, what are the facts that she experienced and what are the facts that you experienced, then you can come to an agreement on what needs to happen next. Sometimes what needs to happen next is just a conversation about a boundary that needs to be placed. Sometimes what needs to happen next is a conversation about what you need in the relationship or what she needs in the relationship. You see, the thing that came out of that fight was actually really simple. My wife goes, I just need some quality time with you. I go, well, what is quality time? She goes, I just want to do things that we enjoy together from time to time. Or I just want to sit on the couch with you for a few minutes so that you and I can have a conversation. And it was me understanding that and then taking action the very next day or that same day of just sitting on the couch and talking to her that actually allowed us to bring closure to the conversation. If I had to guess, because I used to be in your shoes, there's probably all of these storylines going on in your head about how this will never work. How every time I get into a fight with my wife, she constantly raises her voice and she's crazy or she just won't listen. The reality is it's because you tolerate it. You see, my wife used to do the same thing. We would get into an argument and she would start to raise her voice and I would stay calm and I just wouldn't engage. And it got to the point where I looked at her and I go, when you're ready to have a conversation and you don't want to yell, I'm more than happy to listen, but I'm not going to do this. And she got even more pissed and she raised her voice even more. I can't believe that. And I just held the fucking line. You see, at the end of the day, I teach men how to be leaders, lead themselves. Just because your wife is volatile doesn't mean you need to be. It also doesn't mean you need to tolerate it. You see, to be a leader in your home doesn't mean you're a dictator. Doesn't mean you bark orders or try to command respect. No. For you to be a leader in the home, it's how you show up emotionally when there's chaos in the house. And this is the work that most men are unwilling to do, but this is the work that I do with all of my clients. This is going to be challenging, and everything inside of you is going to want to fight back. But this is why you have to have the bigger picture in mind. You're not trying to win the fight. You're not trying to win the battle. You're trying to win the war. And the war is the disconnection that happens between you and your wife because of all the pressure that you feel. I would imagine that if I had you go back to the day that you proposed or the day that you said I do, you could remember why you chose to marry this woman. But in the middle of a fight, it's easy to forget that. And so if you're feeling this resistance, if you're like, she's never going to respond this way, she's never going to act this way, she's never going to buy into this, it doesn't mean that that has to be your standard. Because the moment that you lead and the moment that you decide that we're no longer going to fight this way, you no longer choose to play by those rules, there is no fight that way. This is how you lead your family. This is how you lead your wife, by learning how to lead yourself in the middle of the storm. So you got two pieces of homework after watching this video. Number one, you and your wife need to have a conversation. Next time things are calm, after the kids go to bed and she's not stressed out and you haven't had a rough day, establish the rules about how you guys want to fight. What are the things that are non-negotiables? What makes her feel safe in the middle of a conversation? What does she need at the end to make sure that the thing is resolved? Establish these rules because the reality is the next fight is coming. The real question is, are you going to be ready for it? And when you establish these rules of what you guys will and won't do, it creates a container. It creates a place of safety so that when those things do start to come up and you can feel the tensions rise and the voices started to elevate, you both can agree to the thing that you guys came together when you were thinking clear-headedly on how you want to handle this fight. And listen, if you need some additional resources, I've linked How to Fight with Your Wife below. It's a free guide. I want to give it to you because it's something that I wish somebody had given to me, so that I didn't have to end up in the middle of my kitchen having my wife telling me that she fucking hated me and that she hated this relationship, and for us to only go through years of unnecessary pain and suffering. So if this is something that you want, click the link below. And next time you and your wife get into a fight, you'll be ready. And if you don't want to get it, and you just want to continue to have the same fights with your wife and wonder why you're sleeping on the couch nonstop, well, that's up to you. If you just like these videos, click the subscribe button or whatever they say on these channels, and I'll see you in the next video.